I can't sleep when I lay in bed. Too much thinking in my head. I don't know what to do anymore. But come on now, tell me the score. Is there anything I can do to get out of these tragic blues? I'm a victim of circumstance. I never really had a chance. I lay down and stare at my feet. You know the world has got me beat.
Welcome to today's edition of Mental Health Matters. Today we're going to be talking about mental health awareness. I have two guests on the show today. They're going to be sharing their personal story and what mental health is about to them. Welcome to our show.
Thank you.
Welcome to our show.
Thank you.
So we're going to just have a brief discussion about mental health. As you guys know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so we're just going to share our ideas and just kind of talk about what we feel mental health is, and just try to raise awareness to the people that's watching the show. So I want to start off by asking you guys, what is mental health to you?
Well, for me, good mental health is having balance, to be reasonably happy, because you're not going to be happy all the time.
Yeah.
So, but to have some kind of a balance where you're just not all over the place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me it would mean a certain degree of self-sufficiency, organization in my life, stability, and able to solve problems that come along, and that sort of thing. So to be stable and self-sufficient, organized.
So do you guys think that even though a person can be sufficient and stable and organized, do you feel that there's room for up and down, highs and lows, or is it just they have to be at a steady pace all the time?
Well, I think everybody has highs and lows, and you can't, but to try to be, not to make the ups and downs too extreme.
Yeah.
Try to make it kind of even keel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. What are your?
Yeah, I would think too that I think it's very important to know what you can do as far as on a regular basis, what you're capable of doing, and then have a safety net too. And don't overdo. Mainly that you're aware of what your limitations are, but that you do as much as you can to have a good quality of life on a day-to-day basis.
Exactly. So for those that have been diagnosed with a mental health condition, do you think that at one point that they have probably been misunderstood by the people in the community? And if so, why do you say that?
Most definitely, because people, they'll see you, and let's say, for example, you could be on a certain medication, and so somebody automatically assumes, well, this person's been drinking or something like that, and it's not the case. They're like being judged,
Yeah.
By their behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but yeah, there is a lot of stigma out there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think that the misunderstanding can go different ways. I think when people hear about someone having a mental illness, they expect to see, obvious signs,
Yes.
outward
Mm-hmm.
activities, that sort of thing. And then there are people that, it's funny because I think sometimes people think that they mean well when they say something like, I would have never known. You had a mental
Right.
illness,
Yeah.
You act so normal, or you seem so normal.
Yeah.
So that misunderstanding can cut a lot of different ways, and it's very difficult for people that have a mental illness to to know, I think, to kind of get an idea of how they're supposed to fit in, or what's expected of them.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, honestly, I think that it's our job as a community to make everyone feel welcome, regardless of who they are or what diagnosis they have or what color of the skin are. I mean, it's our job as a community to make people feel in. And so when you tend to stigmatize people, you tend to isolate them and make them feel unwelcome. And so people tend, some people who are not strong enough, they tend to fall into like depression and anxiety, and and that's when you start to see like suicide or suicide attempts. So I think it's our job as a community to make everybody feel welcome, regardless. So I want to talk a little bit about this, and this is something honestly that I just kind of learned today, and I think I shared this with the both of you guys before the show.
Yeah. So
we're going to talk a little bit about the stigmas that is surrounding mental illness. I wrote down a little blurb that says, it talks about the public stigma is the reaction that the general population has to people with mental illness. Self-stigma is the prejudice which people with mental illness turn against themselves. Both public and self-stigma may be understood in terms of three components, and what's listed is stereotypes, prejudice, and discrimination. I like this blurb because I never thought about self-stigma. We hear about the stigma that's attached from the community or, from family members or friends or whoever, for those that, don't have a deeper understanding about mental health. But I never thought about self-stigma. So let's just kind of talk a little bit about that. What are some ways that you think a person can stigmatize themselves in a sense, if what I'm saying makes sense?
Yeah, there's a person that I know, and they're very hard on themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, don't ever say anything negative about yourself,
Yeah.
But they're always like, oh, I'm so stupid, I'm so dumb, I'm so goofy, I'm like, you're saying all these negative things about yourself,
Right.
But unfortunately, this person was raised that way.
Yeah.
Their family has been drumming that into their mind, all their life. So now they believe this.
Yes. Yeah.
They don't know anything different.
Yeah. And I have to agree with you on that. I know, in the African American community, I mean, I'm not going to say as a whole, but I know, just being raised up as an African American, I know some of the words that was expressed to me or people that was being disciplined. Sometimes when a parent get angry, they tend to say things like, oh, you're never going to be in anything, or you're just like your father, or you're just like this person, and you're never going to be anything. And I think in the heat of the moment, the parent or whoever is communicating those words to the person, I don't think that they really mean it. I just think that they're just caught up in the heat of the moment. But after a long period of time, when those same words are ringing in the child's ear, the child or the person tend to start to believe the very thing that's being spoken to them.
Sure.
And so now you see they start to grow up and act like the very thing that was spoken over their life. And now they start to believe, and they start to stigmatize themselves in a sense where, oh, I'm not going to be anything, or why even try, because it doesn't make sense. I'm not going to get out of here anyway.
Or they give up on themselves.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. I think I was sharing with the both of you before we got here. When I think of self-stigma, it also reminded me of those that who are incarcerated or who have been incarcerated. As you know, a lot of times the people who has been incarcerated, they are labeled as criminals. People tend to think the worst of them. I mean, and these are people who could have been rehabilitated, turned their lives around, living a productive life in society. But the moment someone finds out that they have been incarcerated, their whole view of them change. Now that stigma is attached to them, despite the fact that this person has been living a productive life for 5-6 years. Have not been doing anything wrong. But when people find out that this person has been in prison, now it's like this dark cloud is now over them. And so some people, I've known people who have, spent a little time in prison, and their mind frame is, oh, I can't find a good job, or I'm never going to be able to be successful because, you know, I have a felony on my record. They tend to self-stigmatize and believe a lie. You know, so what do you think about that?
Well, yeah, I think it's one of those cases, you know, with mental illness, for instance, where it's like you're being given a script and a part to play.
Yeah.
You know, and so that there's certain expectations on, you know, how your life may go or that sort of thing. And in terms of, you know, self-stigmatization, you know, I think that for a long time, and probably still, a lot of people view mental illness as some sort of a weakness or some kind of moral or character defect, that sort of thing. And I think it's very, very likely that you know, people that do suffer from mental illness have internalized that.
Yeah.
You know, whether they want to believe that they haven't or not. So, you know, it is truly like kind of being given a role to play, and you know, what's expected of me? How should I act? What do I do? I know a lot of people with mental illness study other people in public and in social situations to try to pick up clues onto how it's proper to act.
Wow.
So
Wow. Yeah.
that's really common with schizophrenic people, apparently.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I'm such an advocate. I'm a very strong advocate to break the stigma that is surrounded by mental illness. And you know, I'm going to say this. I'm sure that you know. Well, I'll say it like this. I know people who have been diagnosed with a mental health condition or illness, but these people are very articulate, very intelligent, have higher level degrees, and so forth. I know people who have not been diagnosed with a mental illness or condition, who have no degree, you know, who have, you know, so in other words, for me, you can't put that label on people like that, because and you know, society, for those that have an education they're doing well, and you know, they're making it, you know, but that's the label that that's the standard that society has set up for people to be successful, you know. But I know that you know, the labeling for people who have mental health illness, I know that it's not right and it's not fair, because you're not giving people a chance to be productive members in society, in my opinion. And so, you know, I just want to put that out there, that we need to treat everybody the same, you know, regardless, mental illness or no mental illness, you know, because when you cut our arm, we all bleed red, you know. So I want to ask you guys, have any one of you all personally struggled with having a mental health condition?
Well, I definitely have, and anxiety disorder, and that's why I don't drive, because I have a fear of driving.
Yeah.
And as a child, car sickness in the car, and you know, throwing up, and not being even able to sit in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
Always having to sit in the back seat, and you know, still to this day, I mean, you know, I'm 58 and I still don't drive, you know.
You don't look 58.
Oh, I thank you.
You don't look 58. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's not. It was difficult for me because what they wanted to do was to put me on benzodiazepines.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the body gets used to that.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you're taking it not to feel better, but you're taking it not to feel bad.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I weaned myself off of that. It took 3 years.
Yeah.
You know, but I got off of it, and you know, and still learning tools and how to deal with anxiety with other methods.
Yeah.
You know.
So
The rap helped.
yeah.
Yes.
I want to talk about.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about rap too, but because you talked about an anxiety. So, you know, part of what people don't understand. Well, let me say that part of what people who does not have a deeper understanding of mental health, they wouldn't consider an anxiety and fear as part of the mental health diagnosis family, so to speak. But in actuality, it is. And we all, at one point, suffer from an anxiety. I know when I'm in school now, working on my master's degree or whatever. So I know there are times when, if I'm faced with a very difficult project, that anxiety tends to come on a little bit, But even people who, just say I throw some out there in a workplace, or if someone had to have a very difficult conversation with somebody, there at times tend to be a little bit of an anxiety, but people don't realize that. You know what I'm saying? But they won't look at that as part of the mental health diagnosis family, but in actuality it is. So what I'm saying is, I think all of us as in society as a whole, we tend to be fearful. If somebody walked up to me and pulled out a gun, I'm going to be fearful. Let's be real here. Right. But people, they don't put the pieces of the puzzle together like that. Sure. Because of the stigma. They look at people with mental health condition. They have their own assumptions about how they're supposed to act or who they are. They're crazy, or they this, they're violent, or they're that, and that's not true. In most cases, So I just want to kind of throw that out there. Because
I get it, because like with bipolar, a lot of people think that, okay, well, he's nice one minute, and then the next minute he's angry or grouchy, but that's not always the case. Because some people could be just very happy-go-lucky, and then they can be like manic depressed, and they don't necessarily, because they're bipolar, get angry. So that's like one of the stigmas that they say, oh, you're bipolar, and so that then like you're going to be angry or something, and it's like, no.
Exactly. Once again, think about somebody who was in love with somebody. I'm just going to use a scenario, and the person just break up with them. How do you think they're going to feel? Do you think they're going to be walking around doing backflips? No. They're going to probably be depressed. Right. They're going to probably be isolated, because they have to take this time to heal from this situation that just happened to them. But the society, they don't put the puzzles, together like that. You know what I'm saying? And if you get somebody who lose someone, to death, do you think they're going to just be smiling and cheery? No. They have to get into a space where they can grieve and deal with this process. But that does not make them weak. That does not make them less of a member of society, And so we, for those that don't have a deeper understanding, I think that, some way, somehow they should start to get educated about this, because it's happening everywhere. It's growing too, and it's hitting everybody's family, and so we have a job to do to just break those stigmas down.
And I like it that they're trying to educate the police department on how to handle people with mental illness, because they'll have a misperception, like, why is this person walking around the block for the third time? Why are they loitering? Why are they, and it's not even what they're thinking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. I know, I have a member, several members in my family that, who are associated with, a mental health condition, so to speak. And, growing up, it was obvious that, they needed help, but they didn't receive the help because the stigma that was attached. And so when I talked to the mother of some of these, loved ones, one of the response I got was from one of the mothers was, well, I knew something was going on. I knew they needed help, but I was worried about, what my friends was going to say, and, and stuff like that. And so because of that, they had a lot of bumps in the road because they didn't get the proper help that they needed. They didn't get the services they needed and stuff. So I'm thankful that, one of them got some help when it, got the proper help that he needed. Sure. So, we need to do better with that. what about you? Do you have any
Diagnosis?
yeah, any
or-
diagnosis,
yeah.
anything?
It took about 8-9 years for them to actually officially diagnose me as bipolar 2.
Okay.
So yeah, and that actual process started in 2005. But my first breakdown was in 1986, so I was 17 years old. So I've had mental illness my entire adult life.
Yeah.
And that was just, through my early 20s, my teens, it was just a series of really disastrous breakdowns.
Yeah.
Not speaking for 3 months at a time, that sort of thing. And, I didn't get treated. And then I tried to pull out of it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you said that the person, it took a while and there were bumps in the road to get the help, and it's horrifying.
Yeah.
It's a horrifying place to be when you, because you're alone.
Yeah.
You're ashamed, you're frightened.
Mm-hmm.
But I did the whole going and trying to work the full-time job, trying to do all the outward appearances stuff. No matter what was going on inside of me, and and it takes its toll on you too, and it shows through.
Yeah.
There's times when people go, okay, there's something going on, but unfortunately, not everyone is willing to act, and by the
Yeah.
time everyone notices, it's too late.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so. Looking back, of course, hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
I wish I would have, sought help earlier, but there it is. I did, and I feel so blessed that I'm getting treatment and that I'm able to deal with this issue.
Nice. How important is it to have a circle of support?
Very.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because,
Very.
and the reason why I asked that was because one of the things that you just said, you kind of, when speaking at 3 months at a time and things like that. But I'm going somewhere with this too. But how important is that, in your opinion?
I think it's very important because I take turns with my circle of support, so I don't pick on the same person over and over and over again, which is why it's good to have several people in your support circle, and to kind of use them as a sounding board. And because one person may have one take on something and the other person may have another take on something, and you probably would have never thought about it.
Right.
So I kind of pick their brains.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful to have friends that do support you.
Yes. That's true.
Yeah, it's absolutely. I think it's essential, and it is a wonderful thing. And it's also good for me to have people that will call me out on behaviors, that'll say, did you take your medication? What's going on with you? You do realize that you're saying this because you might be having a really bad mood swing right now, and that sort of thing. So it's always nice to have that too. And for them to be comfortable enough to say things, if they want, and have a sense of humor about it, and you can joke about it a little bit, that sort of thing. It is wonderful. It's amazing. I know it's not everyone has that, and that is that breaks my heart to think about. But
yeah. I'm glad that that you guys spoke on it, because I think that regardless if you have a mental health condition or not, a circle of support is needed. We as being humans, we cannot do everything on our own. We all need somebody. I used to think that, I don't need anybody, and I'm got this and got that. No, you do need somebody.
sure.
Whether you need somebody to, like you said, call you out, or whether you need somebody to, take you to the grocery store. I mean, whatever. Whether you need somebody to bounce ideas off of.
Right.
We need that support. And so when we get to a place that when we feel that we don't need no support, I think that then we're setting ourselves up for failure, for sure.
Definitely.
So and I'm trying to make the comparison and just bring out that regardless if you have a diagnosis or not, we're all in the same boat together, because we all need the same thing, which is the quality of life.
Sure.
And people shouldn't be afraid to ask for help either.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. But unfortunately, we live in a society where if you do ask for help, you're, classified or looked at as being weak.
Yeah.
And by some, and that's not necessarily true,
I got over that.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I need some help.
Exactly.
Right.
I know me, if I want a haircut or something, like, look, can you
help me out?
Yeah, can you do this? Can you do that? I have a problem with that now, because I know that,
Sure.
I need help from certain people.
Yeah.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
that's
people feel good helping too, and that's the thing. I felt awful because I had to ask a really big favor of a friend recently.
Yeah.
And I felt awful, and I kept saying, "Gee, I really owe you." And he said, "You know what? It made me feel so good that you felt that you could ask me."
that's awesome.
And I thought,
nice.
"Wow, yeah, there you go." So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's awesome.
it's not just bad to ask. It's healthy, and you know.
Yeah. I love helping people. For those that know me know I do. I really do. I think for me, sometimes I have to set boundaries with myself because I'm always trying to offer help to people and trying to do things and trying to take on more than I sometimes can handle.
Sure.
You know, but it does make me feel good that I can give of my time and, you know, whatever my gifts and talents are to be a help to other people, you know. But I do need to set those boundaries and say, you know what, Jay,
Yeah,
no,
sure.
you need to say no to this
Sure.
right here. So I know you two volunteer. And I'm only bringing this up because you kind of talked about feeling good about yourself when you help people. So how have being a volunteer help you to assist people that are associated with having a mental health condition? How have your volunteering skills and your personal experience helped them, you know?
Well, I like it that they'll call in and they may be sad, they may be crying, or they may have problems, but, excuse me, but I distract them, and we start talking about other things, and like the eagle cam, you know, it's like, oh, the storm knocked down the tree, and the eagle
Yeah.
has to make another nest and stuff like that. And before you know it, you know, like I've had them actually say to me, said, you know what, I called because I wasn't feeling well, and now, you know, I'm completely forgot why I called.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
know?
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Awesome.
And it also helps if
Absolutely.
you can make them laugh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great feeling too, yeah. Just
Yeah.
to and that's the thing too. And one of the things that I like is that it takes me out of my head that I spent a long time in. And you know, it's nice to be able to just get out of my head and put myself in someone else's shoes, listen to their stories, to meet and talk to people that ordinarily I never would have had a chance to.
Yeah.
You know, if I'd lived, you know, a non-mental illness life,
Yeah.
you know, I would never have had these opportunities, and it's just wonderful. You know,
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, you know, just giving back to the community in general, you know, it does make people like us, you know, feel good. You know, not just about what we're doing, but it does make us feel good just about ourselves because we do tend to step out of the role of being. I don't want to use the word selfish, but in a sense, we can kind of go there because you won't be thinking about your needs and what you got to do or your problems or whatever. You know, you're more focused on improving somebody else's quality of life in a sense. So that's you
And
know,
they appreciate it.
yeah,
They really do.
Well, yeah, and you know, I mean, I remember times when, you know, living in a house where there's a million phone books open to numbers that, you know, and I don't know what to do and I'm scared. And if someone would have just walked in and said, hey, you know, I can help you do this, help you do that, it would have made an incredible difference. And, you know, my attitude is that as long as I can do it, you know, it's an imperative.
Yeah.
I need to do it
Yeah.
because I can. You know, I remember there was a time when I couldn't. You know,
Yeah.
I couldn't even conceivably help anyone else because I couldn't help myself.
yeah,
But as long as, you know, I'm able to, that's, you know, I just think that it's an obligation that I have.
yeah. Well, I shouldn't say. I know a lot of people who, you know, may go through things in life, so to speak, and some of their circle of support are not as educated on some of the stuff that they actually go through. But I know that their circle of support does mean well. I do know that for a fact. Or well, what would you say to a family member or a friend of someone that may be having a mental health, you know, breakdown or whatever you want to call it, someone who just may be going through at the moment or a crisis situation? What would you say to the family member who may be connected with that person? How can a family member help support them in their time of need? Like, what's some of the things that they can do? Because some family members can have a loved one who may be going through a situation, and honestly, they probably wouldn't know what to do. You know,
Well, the family member themselves needs support as well, because they may not know what they're dealing with. And I would tell them, I said, you know, if you need to talk to somebody, you can call me and you could speak to me, you know, and, you know, to try to help them help the other person.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the first thing I would do is definitely, if I hadn't already, I would definitely out myself as far as having a mental illness,
Yeah.
and telling them that I have had the experience of going through things that the person in question might be going through, and you know, definitely offering advice, support, listening, and that sort of thing. And you know, and if they're willing to, go out and buy some books,
Yeah.
Google,
Yeah,
learn
exactly.
every single thing you can about it.
Yeah.
And you know, just throw yourself into that, you know, because you know.
Yeah, I think what you just said is key. Educating yourself. It's huge.
Oh, it's
huge.
massive.
You know, because if you're not educated on this matter, you're not going to, in my opinion, you're not going to be able to properly support and give them the help that they need. You know, so when you go out there and go to support groups and go to presentations and seminars and things like that and watch programs on these particular subjects, you're already taking the first step as being an effective supporter for the person that you're around. I know for myself, you know, I've managed and supervised in the arena of people, caregivers, that was provide services to people who had developmentally disabilities. But when I started working in this area, this was a whole, it was different than where, you know, my background sort of came from. And so when I came over here, I thought I knew about mental health. I thought I was, you know, but when I came over here and started working here, I was like, oh, okay, this is a little bit different. You know, it's in the same family, but this is a different part of, you know, what I'm, you know, not really used to. So I had to really, really educate myself on older adults, on the youth, on the family members, caregivers.
Yeah.
I mean, all ages, all races. I really had to really, you know, do some digging, you know, and because, you know, if I was going to be effective from a management level, I had to, you know, I had to educate myself and know exactly what I was getting into, you know. And so when when the staff, you know, came on and different things like that, then I was able to kind of share my experience and share what, you know, I had been doing and different things like that. But, you know, even work with older adults. I mean, it's a lot of times with that, I look at that as how people tend to kind of, that's just my opinion, you know, when the older members in society tend to get like in their 60s and 70s and 80s, you know, it appears that they are less important in the family structure. And you know, back in the day, they were like the pillars in the families. You know, when they got older, if they had any type of illness, you know, they would move in like with a son, a daughter, and the family would take care of them. Now, it's not like that. They
It's like they're obsolete.
yeah, you know, they're not important.
Sad.
You know, it's sad, you know. And so I'm grateful for being able to have experience with that particular population, because my mom is an older adult. And, you know, even with her doctors and stuff like that, and, you know, she kind of got me on, you know, paperwork when I can get information from them, and I do what I need to do as an older adult, because I know some doctors are not as serious like they should be with this population, opposed to someone that's 15 or 4 or 5 years old. You know, so I'm grateful for my experience in so many words. So what are some of the ways, I kind of talked about this a little bit too, but I just want to get you guys' opinion. What are some of the other ways, we could educate the members in society about, you know, mental health? What are some of the things that we can do as people who may have experience or people who may have the education? You know, what can we do to educate, you know, people in society?
I think just not be silent, talk.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, open up about it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I guess really one way to put it would be to normalize it in a way that it's, you know, that it's an everyday part of a lot of people's lives and existences and that sort of thing. And definitely be open about it. I mean, if there are people with mental health diagnoses that are comfortable talking about it, you know, in public or anything like that, or on a program like this, you know, that's massive. You know? I mean, because, you know, the thing is sometimes people, the face that they put to mental illness are the most extreme cases. It's the person that's not on medication and walking down the street screaming, or running out in traffic and that sort of thing. And that it's easy for people just to shut it there, and say, well, that's you know, and they don't realize it. You know, it could be their doctor that's on prescription, you know, that's taking medication for bipolar. You know, who knows? It could be anybody, and it is everybody. You know, so that just visibility, talking more, information, education, you know, to make it not this big scary. You know,
Well, I would let them know that it's okay.
Sure. Yeah,
It's okay to have a mental illness, and there is no shame in being sick. It's like, well, are you going to be? I'm ashamed because I have diabetes, or I'm ashamed because I have cancer. So why should you be ashamed if you have bipolarism or whatever? You know,
Absolutely.
Exactly. And I think too is, you know, I think also it's important too. We kind of crossed this earlier, is to educate family members. That's huge because, you know, when things happen in the families, and when, you know, children are, you know, you kind of know that if a person need help or support in the mental health area, you kind of know. But I think for me, I think it's important, especially for my family, you know, to have those discussions. You know, I'm very direct, and I don't. For me, I don't believe in secrets and hide stuff. No, let's talk about it. You know, and I don't have a problem with asking. And I think, you know, certain people in my family kind of they struggle with that. You know, because I'm head on. Okay, what happened with this, and why is this like that, and who is this, and you know, well, I get a generic answer, but I'm going back in because you know. And so on the flip side of that, when it comes to dealing with mental health or things like that, I mean, I want to know that you know what's going on. I want to make sure that you're educated in this area, because you're going to need to be, because of the person that's connected with you, so to speak. You know,
absolutely.
So I think it's important.
I got a lot of education from peer partner supports.
Yeah.
And because they go through a lot of what I go through, you know, and it's amazing. Sometimes I feel like the peer partners help me more than psychiatrists or psychologists. I mean, they've actually been a big help.
Yeah.
Because they get me. They know what I'm going through.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I definitely agree.
A lot of education with the peer partners. They know a lot.
Yeah. Well, there's a difference in book smart opposed to lived experience. And no matter what you do, you can go to school for you know, somebody to teach about games. Well, okay, your education level is going to be limited because you don't have a personal experience. If you have somebody that lived the game banging life, then they can teach you some things because you ain't been out there. You know, so.
And that's why I think too it's important in the mental health field for people for consumers to really advocate for themselves too, and to be very explicit with their doctors, with their nurses, with everyone. Tell them because you're the one there that you're the subject. So to be very clear about what you're feeling and very direct about it, because there's assumption that sometimes a psychiatrist might not have a mental illness. And though like you said, they might know everything about different illnesses and stuff like that. They need to listen. One of the best things you can do to educate yourself on anything is just be quiet and listen. So I think it's very important that if you're able to and you have a mental illness, you need to really advocate, be loud and proud.
I know. Recently, my mom had went to. She had to go to the doctor and about some things, and I. Recently, I remember telling her, because my mother's the type of person, she don't want any trouble. She just want everything peace, and and I'm like, Mom, no, you need to ask these people questions.
you need to find out this, you need to find out that, but just a couple of days ago, I was talking to her, and she was like, well, what if they try to do something to me? I said, Mom, these folks ain't gonna try to do nothing to you. If anything, they're gonna be on their best behavior. Right. Give me, let me give them a call, Sure. And she, because she know I'm gonna get in and advocate, And so just to have that support, I think it's awesome. But at the same time, I like that, my mom need to, as well as other people, need to be able to advocate for themselves. As well, I know for me, and I think I shared this before. I know I had went to the doctor a while back over a situation, and the doctor he was very adamant about my symptoms being associated with this particular thing right here. And I'm telling the doctor, no, it's not that. Right. Oh my goodness, he was just so and Mr. Williams and a lot of my patients come in and they lie and they say it's not this. I'm like, well, it's not that, So we went back and forth for like 10, 15 minutes. And so he was like, well, I want you to go get this did and that did and this test did. I'm like, no, it's not that, So finally, he convinced me to go. I went, and got the blood work and all this other stuff did. And it was nothing pertaining to what he said. Right. And I told him, I said, look, I told you it was not this right here, And so once again, you have to be in a position to advocate. And because for me, you can't just tell me anything. You can't just say A, B, C, and D. I'm like, okay, we got to dig a little bit deeper on this. Unfortunately, some people kind of just, if they go to the doctor and the doctor say, oh, well, you have a mood disorder, I'm going to put you on all these medications. Well, no.
And that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
The first medication, I trusted that they would work, that they would do what they're supposed to do, didn't do any research, didn't do anything like that. And it was a nightmare. It just so happened that it was a nightmare. It taught me my lesson really fast. Yeah. So in a way, it's good that it was a bad experience because it taught me now, if you're going to be prescribed something, you look it up. Yeah. You research it. You talk to, you do whatever you can because it's a humongous thing. Yeah.
Well, I always do research because there could be cross reactions. What if it doesn't agree with my blood pressure medicine?
Yeah.
So,
And when you see the amount of words in some of those, cross reactions, and I can't think of the exact term for them.
My
right
favorite
now.
one is like, don't take it if you're allergic to it.
Right.
It's like, well, how do you know if you're allergic to it or not?
You never taken it before.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah, and in all honesty, in all fairness, I think a lot of those clinicians do their best to the best of their abilities. Because a lot of them go to school, get education, they become clinical, and that's all they know.
Yeah.
But some of them are missing the peer perspective. They're missing the peer experience. And so I think you need both in a sense, especially from the peers. You definitely need that component because you got to have somebody who have walked through the fire, who has been through the storm, somebody who can be compassionate and understanding and sympathize with whatever the person is going through.
Well, and that's the thing. I think that, I find that it's almost like people with mental illness, just like people with drug addiction or alcoholism or any problem like that. They have kind of a common language.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was a whole thing about, for years, people have been describing their depression as a black dog. And that was going on until, Winston Churchill was the first person to describe his depression as a black dog. And when he did that, people all over the world were going, that's what I call mine.
Yeah.
And to this day, people use that phrase to describe their depression. So, yeah, absolutely. It's like, having your own little language sometimes when you're talking to someone that's also suffering. Makes a big deal, and absolutely the health the healthcare professionals and stuff like that. I don't think ever really want to do any harm or anything like that. But it is a matter of just not having that perspective.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, one person can definitely make a difference for sure. That's for sure. So how do you guys think hope is, or how is hope associated with recovery?
Well, I heard
or living in recovery, should I say?
Well, I just know, like in psychology, they always say that to avoid depression, you want to have something good to look forward to.
Yeah.
And so that gives you hope for something pleasant down the road.
Yeah.
you know, to kind of lift your spirits,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like binge watching Netflix.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And what do you do? Do you think it's important to have hope in order to stay in recovery?
Oh, well, absolutely. I think it's essential. I mean, without hope, I don't know. I remember early on, I memorized this poem by Emily Dickinson, the one about hope is the thing with feathers that perches in your soul, and how the bird never stops singing no matter what. And
Nice.
yeah, and the basic thought is that hope doesn't ask anything of us.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
it just is, and it never will stop, and it's always going to be there. Yeah, and I think that there's something inviolable in people, in everybody, that they don't always recognize. I think
Exactly.
they have strengths that they don't recognize. I think that they have a lot of, and especially people that have suffered with an illness,
Yeah.
I think have these whole wells of strength that they just haven't tapped into. And it's a matter of just, that's what hope is for me. I can do this,
Yeah.
I can get through this, and
Yeah. Yeah.
there's always another day ahead,
Yeah.
The sun rises prettier than it sets in a way,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but it does it either way every day.
Exactly, exactly. I think we need hope for anything we do. Whether it's for living in recovery, even people that's married, or people that have children.
Sure.
Or,
It's like in recovery, though, the hope of finally getting it right.
Yeah.
You know, because what's that old adage, doing the same thing over and over again and trying to get
Yeah.
different results,
Yeah.
you're not going to get different results.
Yeah.
Like one person was saying, okay, you go into recovery and like maybe you didn't master it, but then the second time you'll go into recovery and you keep on getting better at it each time you go into recovery till finally you master it.
Yeah.
And you don't slip out of recovery.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. We had a
I guess
guest.
practice makes perfect when it comes
Yeah.
to recovery.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because it's because a person may not succeed the first time. You don't. The show is not over.
No.
It's definitely not over. You gotta. I mean, every successful person in life, I almost assured that they failed at some point in order to get where they are.
Yeah,
So
there's a saying, something like that. It's not that every great man fell at some point; it's that they got up.
exactly,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
that's the key.
Definitely.
Is getting up.
Yeah.
So what is your idea of having a successful life living in recovery? Because some people idea may be just being stable, just having a job, being able to pay my bills. That may be their interpretation of having a successful life living in recovery, so to speak. I just want to hear you guys' opinion about that.
I think good health.
Good health.
That's key.
Yeah.
Because I mean, when you're battling with addiction and your health is not always going to be
Yes.
good.
Yeah.
And just to be able to think that you reach a point like I'm healthier now than I've ever been before in my life.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
being able to enjoy some days feeling good instead
Yeah.
of feeling bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's
Yeah, I mean, I remember so many times just feeling absolutely horrible because I felt like I was such a prey to my illness that I was so unable to do anything and control it. And, I've since learned that there obviously are ways, and that's why it's so important for me to take my medication, to, watch my symptom manifestations, to think about everything I'm doing in terms of how that plays into it and that sort of thing, because I don't want to be there. I don't want to be there again.
Yeah.
I want to be able to. One thing that I would call successful would be that someone else is able to call up and say,
Yeah.
"Can you help me?"
Yeah.
That I'm able to help someone. That I am responsible now for things like that. That's extremely important to me.
Yeah, yeah. I was just, I know we're running out of time. I was just talking to a good friend of mine on Saturday night, to be exact. And I know he don't mind me sharing this. I won't say his name, but, he's struggling from an addiction to pain medication and among, here and there, drink a little bit of liquor, and and as a result of that, he's battling a lot of suicidal thoughts. He's depressed all the time, not motivated, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, and just And I just told him, I said, man, look, I said, and he's not willing to go get help either. And so I just told him, I said, look, I said, you're not living a quality life. I just was really direct with him.
Yeah.
And I, of course, in a loving manner. And I said, man, I said, I remember when you was, living this way, you was happy, and and the goal of my conversation was trying to motivate him to move towards getting help.
Sure.
And and I was saying, now you're just, you're struggling day to day to even, to just have some type of peace in your life, and and it's all through these medications and stuff. And I was really, I talked for him a good while, just really trying to get him to think. And I told him, I said, whenever you are ready to move forward to get the help that you need, I'm gonna be all in. I'm still a supporter of you. I'm gonna always be here to support you and things like that. But I really think it's important that you kind of think back over your life and look where you are now, because you need some help. Because the way you're living now, you don't have a quality life. He's missing work all the time. I mean, he works a good job and make good money, and he can't at this point work a full work week, on a consistent basis due to the addiction to the pain medication and stuff. And so,
Been there. Yeah.
So I'm really optimistic that eventually things will turn around for him, because he's a really good guy.
Yeah.
But it's just he's in this place where he don't want help. He definitely would. Oh my goodness, I don't have a mental illness. That's the last thing that he would. But he need help. And so I just, man, in my own little way, I really try to drop those little nuggets. Not a lot, just here
Sure.
and there. When he come around and things is going on, he's having a breakdown, he's in, crisis and stuff. I'm just here for him, and I don't really speak on things, and I try to wait till the time is right, to just try to give him that supportive advice that he need. But I just wish that people, not just him, but people that may be in that situation, move forward with getting help, because it's nothing wrong with getting help.
No,
It's
there's
not
not.
an embarrassment.
And the thing is, I've found just with family members and people I know and stuff like that, it takes a lot less time to turn things around. It takes a lot longer to get into a mess, really, than it takes to get out of it.
Yeah.
That's what I found.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's interesting. Interesting, but definitely true. And he knows this. He's been on the right track for a while, and then he'll go back, and he'll on the right track, and he'll go back, and he'll go a little deeper this time, then get out, then go 6 levels deeper, and then he'll go, so he knows. But I'm just going to be there to support him and help him, and anywhere I could. Well, I want to thank both of you for being on our show. We've run out of time, and we definitely had a great discussion here. And that is it for today's edition of Mental Health Matters. If you enjoyed the show that we had today, or if you have questions about the show, or if you would even like a DVD copy of this edition, please dial 916-366-4600. Thank you.
When I think of where I've been, the good times and the bad, on a scale of 1 to 10, either way I'm glad, 'cause I'm not alone. As I'm reaching for the phone, your voice is there, you really care, you're my comfort zone. Sometimes when I'm lost, crushed beneath the pain, Though I can't afford the cost, I just smile and play the game. But there's a healing place where I cannot pretend. Your smiling face, your heart's embrace heals me again. So even when the storm is strong and I'm deaf to my own cry, I faintly hear a distant song, and I simply can't deny that I'm not alone. 10,000 times I've known my best bet is that first step for hope. Trying to stand tall, I'm haunted by the past. With my back against that wall, one thing is clear at last. The kind of love you show to me flows from an endless stream, with shores so wide it won't subside. My mind had never dreamed how I'm not alone, even when I'm on my own. Your gentle touch is much too much to let me roam. So even when the storm is strong and I'm deaf to my own cry, I faintly hear a distant song, and I simply can't deny that first step for home. When I think